Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this roundtable today, hosted by Sprout Social. I am MJ Jordan. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the VP of Field and Channel Marketing here at Sprout. I am so honored to be hosting the second in a three-part roundtable series about working more effectively as social teams and social marketing professionals. In just a minute, I'm going to bring up some talented individuals to join me for today's discussion about making a smarter impact. But first, I want to highlight a new report just released by Sprout that is helping to ground the discussion for each of these events. Our recently released 2024 Social Media Productivity Report helps unpack what separates the most effective social teams from the rest and how you can prepare for the growing demands of social media management now and into the future. This report is available for free, and we're going to reference some of its data points during today's conversation, so I highly recommend that you download your own copy at any point, but we will be sure to drop a link to the report in the comments throughout this live stream. And with that, I am so excited to welcome two amazing social marketers to join me for today's conversation. Haley Pierce, Market Engagement Lead for the B2B Institute at LinkedIn, and Brandon Smithrick, Head of Content at Kickstarter and prominent LinkedIn creator. Welcome, both of you. Thank you so much for joining.
It's great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Amazing. I want to take a minute, let you each introduce yourself. Brandon, let's start with you.
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Brandon Smithrick. I use he, him pronouns. And like MJ said, I am the Head of Content at Kickstarter, the world's leading crowdfunding platform. But I'm also a LinkedIn creator, so I speak on everything from social media to content marketing to how do you just grow your personal brand. But I'm really excited for this chat because when I just talk with people, they're always wondering how do you navigate these new changes within social media. So platforms like this really just save people headaches.
I love it. Haley, how about you?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Haley. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a market engagement lead at the B2B Institute. So for those who aren't familiar, the B2B Institute is a think tank that sits within LinkedIn. We have sort of the privilege of working with academic institutions and thought leaders in this space to research marketing effectiveness. And then we get to work with advertising customers to help them apply it to their strategy. So super fun, kind of a meta role for me. But I am responsible for overseeing our brand and our external go-to-market approach. So that's everything from paid media to social events, sort of everything in between. And yes, echoing my excitement to be here.
All right. I love it. Okay. Today's conversation is all about working smarter. So to that end, I thought we could kick things off with a lighter question, maybe ease into today's topic a little bit. Let's talk about productivity. My question is, what is one thing that you're doing daily to be more effective in how you spend your time? I've been thinking about this, and I'm actually going to go first. My productivity hack is using async videos. I will claim the queen of async videos. I use them constantly. One, it saves me so much time on meetings. It's amazing what I can solve in, a back and forth 2-minute async video to appear on Slack. We knock out so many meetings that do not need to happen that way. And secondly, I love to use them to provide context prior to a meeting. So everything that they need to know before we jump on that call, so that the 30 minutes we have, the hour we have, is spent really in the valuable discussion part and not bringing everyone up to speed. It is my favorite thing. My team is so used to them. Async videos forever and ever. All right, Haley, how about you?
I love that, MJ. I'm going to steal that one for sure. So I like to tell my manager that Asana is my love language. It's a new tool. I promise they're not compensating me for saying this, but it's been incredible in just helping me manage my workload and having all tasks in one place. Also been really helpful. I work cross-functionally, as I'm sure many of you all do. It's really helpful to have like a one picture view into projects, tasks, etc. I think super relevant for social media managers who have a variety of different tasks. So I love Asana. And then a couple other things, I would say time blocking. It sounds super basic, but really critical, I think, in one, to carve out the time to do more heads down work. And then, as part of our jobs, there's so many tedious, always on tasks that I find that if I don't block my calendar, then I'm just booked in meetings all day. So that's been super, super valuable. And then the other thing is, I will shamelessly plug Microsoft's new AI tool, Copilot. I don't know if any of you all have had the opportunity to test it out, but it is now, LinkedIn is a Microsoft company, so it's now embedded into all of our productivity tools. And I've been experimenting with it, and it's been incredible. Like, between it distilling some of those long emails that you avoid reading, and then also just takes meeting notes. So there's lots of cool ways that I've been experimenting with that has definitely massively saved time.
Oh, I love that. I love a good TLDR for sure. Brandon, how about you?
Yeah, I have a lot of new tools to check out. I love the video example because what I've been doing on my side in Slack is doing the voice notes. So instead of typing out a whole long message, doing those voice notes, that way you can just get your thought across and it just shrinks the amount of time you're kind of typing. But I also love time blocking. So what I do on my side is every morning I have a 30-minute block, and that's my dedicated time to update meeting agendas, plan out what I'm going to do for the week, and also get you into a good headspace because you enter that day kind of knowing what I need to accomplish. But also same thing for me. I like to use AI to even help me write my emails. So there's times when I'm going to dictate all of my emails and AI is just going to clean it up. So it just saves me so much time. And then if you are a content writer or marketer, then you're also going to use probably that for blog writing or caption writing. And then again, you're just now an editor and proofreading all of your content.
I love these productivity hacks. So good. Okay, let's jump into our conversation here. As we drill a little deeper into the data of Sprout's new social media productivity report, we saw that 63% of social marketers told us that manual tasks prevent them from doing high impact work. Even more so, 29% attribute task and efficiency struggles to having a lack of tools or the wrong tools. To any of the social practitioners or team members watching, we see you. So let's talk about what goes into using the right tools. How have you seen the right social media solutions transform the impact of social teams within your organization or for your clients? Haley, take this one.
Yeah. So first of all, I would say to the 63% of you, I am right there with you. I was reading the report, and I think one of the headline quotes was basically that people are at max capacity, and I deeply resonate with that. So I hear you, I feel you. I'm someone who finds a lot of energy, not through the monotonous tasks that are required as part of all of our jobs, but through sort of these new, exciting, innovative projects. And so sort of the lens that I've applied of hey, there's always tasks that we have to do, particularly as a social media manager, but how can I do my best to minimize those and sort of systematize them so I can spend my time doing the more thoughtful, innovative work? And I would say a very tactical tip that I've used is building social templates. So sounds simple, but massively effective. I personally use Canva to do so. I'm a huge Canva fan, but there's obviously several tools out there that you can leverage. And I think as I think about, building social templates, not only is it really the smart way to save time, it's actually the most strategic way to do so. So like I mentioned, at the B2B Institute, we've researched marketing effectiveness. And what we find is that the most impactful ad creative features distinct brand assets. So for those who might not be familiar with distinct brand assets, it's actually a term coined by our research partners at the Amber Bass Institute. And really what they are, they're these visual components of your brand. So think about your logo, your colors, characters, animations, and they're really these learned associations that help us notice, recognize, and what people think of when they think of your brand. So as I think about how to apply these, these are the things that should be really memorable and distinct. For example, I think if I were to say, think of a brand that's red and yellow, I would think that most of you might say McDonald's. Similar to say Golden Arches, iconic and very distinct to McDonald's. In the B2B space, I think Salesforce does a really great job with distinct brand assets. They have a character called Astro that's featured in almost all of their creative. They also have that pretty distinct kind of cloud logo that's very recognizable to Salesforce. So I think as a social media manager, it's really your job to think about how to leverage your distinct brand assets, given that you are responsible for creating so much content. So if you have these social templates to kind of bring it full circle, those are already baked in. You've already like optimized what are your top performing ad creative, where can you feature those distinct brand assets, and then they're just repeatable time and time again. So that would be my very tactical recommendation about how to save time there.
Brandon, what's your take?
Yeah, I started my journey as a social media manager, and it doesn't even feel like a meme anymore. It feels like a reality when they say social media managers are a copywriter / graphic designer / advisor. Like you're doing so many tasks and all the things. And I resonate so much with, you just lose so much time with these manual tasks. So one thing I always use to ask myself is, how can I automate this? If you're doing something every single day, there must be a way to automate it somehow. If you know that you're getting asked the same questions, whether it's on Instagram DMs or Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, right? Can I implement a chat bot? That way, all these FAQs are going answered, and I don't have to dedicate physical time and labor to just do these mundane tasks. I also love the Canva tactic that is like low-hanging fruit, and so many brands and social media marketers miss that, because when you are able to templatize some of your work, it does decrease the lead time and how many things you want to churn out in terms of assets. There's probably marketers listening who are thinking, cool, what do I put in my creative brief? What I used to do is say, I want 5 Instagram story templates, 1 for image and text, 1 image text link, 1 text and link. Like you think of every single scenario in which you would use these templates. You then tell your creative team, can you give me 3 to 5 colors each? And now you just created so many different templates where you don't have to go to that team every time you want to create something net new. Doing that allows you to just save so much time in the long end. And I think it's just able to make you a better marketer, because you're able to quickly move on your decisions versus having to go to someone else every single time you want to get something created.
All right, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to talk about some of the broad impacts. The first thing that really comes to mind for me is just the power of social insights that are available when you have a social platform. I think there's this opportunity for social teams to become really proactive and consultative to the rest of the org. And that social insights and the knowledge of like what's happening in our industry, our community, our product, all of that is really necessary when you have a social platform that's able to give you that data. So things like, analytics and social listening data, I just think it's so important to have an easy way to really distill that and be able to share it with your broader org. I'll also say, as a marketer, I know we all know email is so noisy, and I feel like there's this constant consolidation of channels where we're able to like authentically engage with our community. And so social is really evolving into this place where it is the most impactful channel for interacting and communicating with customers. All right, I want to shift gears. Knowing that social teams have a wealth of tasks to deal with in any given day, making time for meaningful work can be a challenge. And I want to talk about how we can help serve as a solution to this roadblock. So Brandon, what strategies have you found effective for prioritizing the work that matters when it comes to driving impact from social media?
Oh, that's a good one. I think driving impact is like the phrase that stuck out in my mind, because you're going to do a lot of different tasks. You're going to deploy a lot of different posts, but the ones that are impactful are probably going to be maybe like 20% out of all the posts you create, right? So it is important to look at your data and figure out what drives the most impact. That way you attach a purpose to each post. Some posts will just be for engagement. Some posts will just be to drive leads, but having that insight allows you to also be very ruthless about your KPIs and what you're trying to track. It also informs your publishing. And I think a lot of marketers, once they have that knowledge, they can become hyper-focused on what's significant to the business. The last thing I'll say here is use AI. I mean, we don't have to preach that, right? If you need help brainstorming, don't waste time scrolling on Instagram. Then you get distracted because you're on Instagram, right? Go to any AI platform, ask for some help in brainstorming. Be very particular with the prompt. Someone told me, treat these prompts as if they are your interns. And that also changed my perspective. Like, I need to be hyper specific. So it's not that I need 5 text posts. I need 5 text posts to drive awareness for this product marketing campaign that is, you want to be very specific. That way you get what you need. The last thing I'll say is we live in a society where UGC content and video content also drives so much growth, whether you are B2B or B2C. So use AI for all your scripting. If it is a list of points you want to hit or kind of talking points, can you turn this into a 30-second script for me for TikTok using engaging language and leaving room for transitions? Boom. Like that just saves you so much time. And now you are able to do that meaningful work so much more, in my opinion.
Brandon, I love that quote about the interns. Like, as someone who was an intern, of course, have managed interns, I resonate with that deeply. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I think, Brandon, you covered on AI. I definitely like +1 to what you're saying there. But so what I would say is, I talked a little bit about like what gives me energy, and that's like the innovation side of things. And so like I mentioned before as well, like I'm constantly figuring out like what are the manual tasks that I can automate, but then what is sort of like the operational engine behind a social media presence that I can make sure that's number one, like well communicated to my agency partners, internal partners, and essentially can run on its own. The other thing that I would say to sort of like feed into that engine is similar to what I was saying around distinctive brand assets. It kind of applies to your content strategy as well. I think a phrase that we use at the B2B Institute is great creative doesn't wear out, it wears in. And so investing in evergreen content is super, super critical, because that way you can sort of have your map of your content a month, 2 months in advance. Gives you the space to figure out, like, you might want to plug in some topical things every once in a while, but it gives you the space outside of the monotony of trying to plan content on a daily or weekly basis. So maybe I'll just double down a little bit on this idea of like great creative wearing in, not wearing out. So a couple of examples, I'm definitely someone who resonates with examples, is if you think about some of like the most memorable ad campaigns, like it's probably memorable partially because you've seen it so many times. So if you think about like Geico's Gecko, like that's an ad that we've seen for years and years and years. And Geico intentionally invested in an ad that they could continually run over time. And that's why it's been so memorable. I think similar, if you think about MasterCard's Priceless campaign, like that's an iconic campaign that they've continued to invest in. And actually, as they entered the B2B space, they decided, like, should we go in a different direction or should we double down in Priceless? And what they did was double down in Priceless and saw like a massive uplift. So I think as you think about your content, don't feel the need to reinvent the wheel. I think it's really like figure out what works. And sort of, MJ, what you were saying is like we have the data as a social media manager to see that, and then double down in what works. And then maybe I'll just add one more point on prioritization. I think this has certainly held true the longer I've been in the workforce. Is like the name of the game is ruthless prioritization. And a couple of years ago, someone gave me like a really tactical way to do so. And essentially what they advised, and I've taken to heart, is think about like the variety of tasks that you might have on your plate in a given week or even a given month, or maybe you can even go even broader, like 6 months, and plot them out on a quadrant. So think about effort versus impact, and you can see that there's 4 different quadrants. And when you plot out those tasks, it actually becomes really clear on what you should prioritize and what you shouldn't prioritize. So like clearly any task that's high effort, low impact is like off the table, like not worth your time. And then I think there's, it's natural for there to be tasks in all quadrants outside of that one I just described, but it becomes clear of like, you don't need to invest in most of your time on the high effort, high impact tasks. Like that's just not feasible. So I think that has been really helpful for me when I felt overwhelmed.
I was reflecting a little bit on what you said, and I was also thinking about a conversation as we were prepping for this webinar, where Brandon was talking about pulling inspiration from brands outside of his industry. I actually want to double click in this with you. What are some lessons that B2B companies can learn from B2C social teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think my role at the B2B Institute, we get to work with a ton of different B2B marketers. And we actually like have actually referenced a lot of B2C research and B2C marketers, because the reality is there's so much that B2B marketers can learn from what B2C marketers are doing. And I think in particular, there's two kind of buckets of what I would say that B2B marketers should really learn from B2C marketers. And that number one is B2C marketers are constantly brand building. And it's largely because they are in crowded spaces they have shorter buying cycles. So if I were to go to the store or go to the grocery store, I'm most likely to buy a brand that I'm already familiar with versus like a brand I have no awareness of. And B2C marketers are required to do that level of brand building and always on brand building really, in order to stay top of mind for their buyers. So B2B marketers, on the other hand, many B2B marketers don't invest in brand. And so we have this rule that we say that people really resonate with. It's called the 95-5 rule. And in short, it basically means that 95% of your buyers aren't ready to purchase your product or service today. 5% of buyers are able to purchase your brand or service today. But I think the funny thing is in B2B, so many marketers double down on that 5%, which actually represent a much, much lower percentage of potential revenue. So when you see that like the upside for your brand is the 95%, you can better allocate your budget across brand and demand. And it really reinforces like the importance of branding. And that's really brand building is really how you reach those 95% of outmarket buyers. And then I think just echoing what I said around creativity and distinctive brand assets, I have been really inspired by B2C marketers and the risks that they take and the creative that they don't shy away from. And B2B marketers tend to be so risk averse because they think that they need to be really serious and they're talking to a business and it's all, no fun and games. And I think what's good to remember is that you're still marketing to people at the end of the day, and people make emotional decisions. So, if you can connect with them on a human to human level, that's actually going to resonate much more than some of these stiff, rational product type messaging.
At Sprout, we ladder a lot of our social priorities into our broader marketing and revenue goals. And reflecting on that, social data informs so much of what we infuse into our broader campaigns. It helps us understand trends, what's top of mind for the different personas, the humans that we're really trying to reach. I think about, in my world, our ABM tactics and our event engagements and the way we're using social data to really build the messaging there. And in Field and Channel, we use a lot of social insights to build a point of view on particular industries that we're trying to reach and making sure that we're really hitting the nail on the head about what hospitals care about or what's top of mind for banks, and then work with our social team to speak to those industries through the content. But there is so much powerful context that's really being shared on social that I think B2B brands need to be taking, to your point, in to inform that human connection we're trying to build. I can't believe this, but we are actually really quickly running out of time together. We've talked a lot about meaningful work, effectiveness, and productivity. And these are words that get thrown around very often. So let's make them even more tactical and rooted in social marketing. Before I open it up for our next question, I want to share some results of a poll where we recently asked Sprout's LinkedIn audience how they feel they could be making a larger impact within their organizations as social marketers. And as you can see, most individuals are really focused on making a larger impact on customer experience. And it looks like from there, they want to better scale the impact on revenue and product development from social marketing efforts. Knowing social teams are really continuously working to just demonstrate the larger business or organizational impact of their work, let's imagine that we can shape the future of the industry. As you think about where you believe the future of social media is headed, what defines meaningful work in the context of social media marketing? Haley, what do you think?
So 2 thoughts on this. I think number one, as a social media manager, it's really easy to get distracted. And I have found that sort of just the strongest social media marketers and probably just marketers in general are the ones who are really disciplined. And, I talked a lot about brand building, and it's really critical to have a strong point of view on what your brand stands for and what it doesn't stand for. And, on a social page, what those brand messages are and what they might not. be. So I think I would encourage everyone to feel empowered by, setting those guardrails and sticking to them. I'd also say, I know MJ, you talked a little bit about this too, and Brandon, you as well, around KPIs, but I think social is really like a testing ground for a lot of other marketing channels. And so that should feel really empowering. Like you're sitting on a wealth of data that can inform some like larger investments. For instance, like I like to take our top performing social posts and then run them on paid. And if I didn't have the knowledge for social and what's resonating there, I, wouldn't know exactly what creative I should double down on in paid. So I think social media managers are really in the driver's seat as far as influencing the marketing strategy at large. And I think even like broader than the marketing strategy, they even have a role in influencing the product because they're the closest to the user. So I think that should feel really, reinforce why you do this and reinforce why this work is meaningful and that you have immense role to play in driving the impact.
Plus one to that, I mean, we saw it in the survey results. People, social marketers really want to have more influence on things like the product. And I fully agree. I think that social first marketing strategies and social data are going to start driving business level decisions. I think about the fact that today, like listening and customer data, social data are so siloed. And I really think when there's this opportunity for social listening to be unlocked more broadly in an organization, there's just so much richness in those insights that social data is as, if not more valuable than other key organizational data points like customer product data. And so I think bringing that into, the way our data analysts and our analytics teams are thinking about all of the data that we have at our fingertips is going to be transformative. I also think the prominence of creator and influencer strategies are going to continue to grow far beyond B2C and really become a mainstay of B2B orgs. And I really think in my world, I mean, I have my like field and channel hat on, but social ABM strategy, particularly for B2B companies, is I think something we'll continue to see grow as well, really creating these personalized engagement with key customers and prospects through super high impact, meaningful, personalized, humanized social outreach. Brandon, what's your thought?
Yeah, I mean, I want to double click into a couple of things. First being, when I think about meaningful work as a social marketer, that is really about what work will your community and company care about. And I think a lot of social marketers need to be very data informed beyond just reporting on impressions and engagement, because I don't think you're going to garner the level of respect that social deserves when you just tell your leadership team it got this many impressions and this many likes, and they don't know what to do with any of that information. So I do think it's important when you use social media as a testing ground, let's say, right? And you're using it for paid media. And on channels like TikTok, if it doesn't work on organic, it probably won't work on paid. So if we can say, hey, we tested this on TikTok, it did this well, and then in partnership with the paid media team, we then boosted that post or ran it as a Spark ad, and now we're seeing this much conversion, you're able to really prove out the value on why you should further invest into social. I think that's a great tactic to not only unlock budget, but also gain the respect of your peers. One other thing I'll say is I do think a lot of social marketers need to be well-versed in SEO. We've seen all these platforms have an increased prioritization of search functionality. Whether you're looking at Instagram or you're looking at TikTok or you're looking at all these other channels, you really want to think about how does our content ladder back to what people are looking for. It's very rare someone's looking for how do I do this, or like branded terms, but they're going to look for broader terms. So really focus on like what content are people looking at, that way we can be proactive versus just reactive. And then the last thing I'll say is in regards to, listening and kind of other data being siloed out. I do think we're not really giving the product team, let's say, feedback on our community. We're seeing comments, we're seeing DMs, we're seeing private messages, we're seeing all this conversation on social. And then for a lot of teams, they either respond to it or just lives there in the ether. It doesn't really come into the organization and say, hey, we did a social listening report on this new product launch we saw. Here was the sentiment score. Here are the common themes. Here are the pain points. How can we address these? And maybe we do a social video with the product team addressing some of these. And then you can create content from those inquiries. I really want social media managers to be thinking 360 about, not just what we post, how to do, How does your content support the organization, support other teams? How do we get other teams to come to us when they need information versus an insights team? That's next level for me.
I'm so inspired by this future. This is the future that we all obviously believe in and are excited to think about in this space. We are already out of time. I can't believe we're here. Thank you, Brandon and Haley, so much for taking time to chat today. This was a really informative, interesting conversation. And thank you to everyone watching. Hopefully this sparked a new idea or perspective for you. Do not forget to download your free copy of Sprout's 2024 Social Media Productivity Report. And if today's conversation intrigued you and you want to learn more about how to work smarter, tune in to our concluding conversation as part of this 3-part roundtable series on Thursday, April 25th. We will be discussing what the future of social might hold. We'll be joined by Rachel Goulet, Director of Social for Sprout Social, Alyssa Noble-Sala, LinkedIn Senior Content Solutions Consultant, and Uber Bautista, Social Video Lead for Morning Brew, and a couple of other special guests. So in the meantime, feel free to drop any questions in the comments, and Sprout, along with some of our speakers, will do our best to get to as many as we can in the coming days. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll see you next time.